Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host Sultan M. Hali with a fresh edition of Defense and Diplomacy. Turkmenistan was a former member of the USSR, and when the USSR disintegrated, it was one of the last countries to gain independence, which happened to be in October 1991. Pakistan was one of the first countries to give it a recognition, which happened in December 91. And following that, diplomatic ties were made in May 1992. With the current title of Pakistan seeking friendship with its neighbors, our relations with Turkmenistan are extremely important. And to pursue it, we are going to discuss today in the presence of two eminent panelists. We are honored to have with us Ambassador Tariq Osman Hyder, who was amongst the pioneering bureaucrats to have set up the embassy over there, and he served as Pakistan's first ambassador there very meritoriously from 1993 to 1998. Welcome, sir. We have with us Nasir Naveed, an analyst. Welcome, Nasir. So let's start with you, sir. Turkmenistan, a very important country. What were its strategic importance, and how does it matter for Pakistan?
Hali Sahab, I would just say that when I went there in '93, our main objective was that its great strategic significance, first of all, lay in the fact that it has the fourth largest gas reserves in the world. And that is why between '94 and '96, we negotiated an agreement to have a consortium, send gas consortium, to send gas to Pakistan, to parallel it later with an oil pipeline, and also to have an electricity pipeline across this energy corridor. And the idea was also the strategic importance that if this pipeline project could start, not only would be vital to our energy security, which it still is, but also it would help stabilize Afghanistan. Because if the Afghans could have learned then that some work had started, then perhaps all this problem with Osama bin Laden and things wouldn't have been there. The Afghan faction would have learned that you can get more out of peace than war. And this still is the case, that if we can get the gas pipeline too, it will be vital for energy security, go on to India as a confidence building measure.
We'll talk about it in a little more detail.
Sure.
Nasir Naveed, the president of Turkmenistan, Kurmanli Bardi Muhammadov, visited Pakistan earlier this week, and a number of agreements were signed and also solidarity was expressed. Could you shed some light on this particular visit?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The visit of Turkmenistan president was a historic visit for Pakistan and Turkmenistan relationship, and this visit has set an agenda of our future relationships. This visit was not limited to energy. This visit was expanded to other areas like trade, like media, cultural affairs, and so many other things. So Pakistan and Turkmenistan have realized that their relationships should be extended to other areas.
In the field of media, what was the understanding reached?
It was an understanding between APP and the media organization.
The Turkmenistan News Service.
News Service, exactly. So these things would ultimately promote the media of both the states, and it would further help both the countries to understand each other's media, and ultimately it would be a good sign for the people of Turkmenistan and for the people of Pakistan.
Right. Ambassador Tariq Osman Hyder, analysts opine that Turkmenistan has a GDP rate as high as 11%, and which is very promising. How can Pakistan learn from its experience?
Well, the reason it has a very high GDP rate is because its natural gas sales through Russia to Europe, to Iran, perhaps a little bit to Turkey, and a 7,000 kilometer pipeline now to China. So it depends on its gas reserves. I think it's not exactly a model for us, because like Iran or other countries with large reserves of fossil fuels. So I think it would be difficult to say that it's a model that we can follow, but certainly we can cooperate with it, yes.
Right. So Nasir, in the field of education, can we make some progress in our relations? Because Turkmenistan, I believe, has a very high rate of literacy.
Interestingly, Turkmenistan has 100% literacy rate. So we don't have even 60%. We are around 55%. So we can take advantage from that, and we can invite the advisors, and we can invite the consultants on education, and we can take guidelines from Turkmenistan on the education, and we can have an agreement on education sector as well. We can send our students, our faculty members to the universities, the institutions, which can help us in improving our literacy rate. And
right. Ambassador Tariq Osman Hyder, you mentioned TAPI, which has a very large potential. And having served there for a very long time, I consider you as a specialist on the Pak-Turkmenistan relations. Could you shed some light on the importance of TAPI?
Yes, well, the first thing is for our energy supplies, it would supply 30 million cubic meters of gas per year. So this would be absolutely vital. And this is not an either or, that if you have TAPI, you can't have IPI. If you have IPI, you can't have TAPI. The question is the best pipeline which comes in first. And ultimately, Pakistan, and for that matter, India will need 2 pipelines, if not 3 pipelines also from Qatar. So it is absolutely vital, because our gas reserves are going down, that we have a supply, constant supply of gas for electricity generation. I think this is very, very vital, and there are no 2 questions about it. And I want to say, we have to make up for lost time. We've lost 15 years. In between, people said Turkmenistan has not enough gas, but the Chinese built a 7,000 kilometer pipeline. So, you know, if we were ahead of the game, and now we are last in the race.
But there is a rider clause attached to this, which is the stability in Afghanistan, because the gas pipeline has to run through Afghanistan, especially through Helmand and Kandahar, which are very volatile regions. So how do we expect this to be expedited?
Well, just to give you an example, in 96 we traveled all over, 94 we traveled all over Afghanistan. We met the Taliban, we met Rabbani Sahab, we met Dostum, we met Haji Qadir. All the factions said, for the peace of Afghanistan, we need this pipeline, we need other projects as well. So the question is that if you look at all the history of pipelines in the world, including Colombia, which is also set with such problems, wherever there are pipelines, they manage to get the gas through. It is in the interest of all the people who are living there that this goes through. They benefit from the construction. 1/3 of the $7.8 billion will be spent on construction in Afghanistan. It will help stabilize Afghanistan. And it is only 795 kilometers through Afghanistan, 800 kilometers in Pakistan, 150 kilometers in Turkmenistan.
Right. So Nasir, would you like to add something to what the ambassador just said?
Indeed, this gas pipeline project is a bit risky. First of all, we'll have to look at the Afghanistan situation. As the ambassador has aptly said, that the past record shows that the Afghan stakeholders showed their willingness for this pipeline. But we must have more guarantees like from the NATO. As they are leaving Afghanistan, they are leaving it to whom? They are leaving to Taliban, they are leaving to the other factions, or leaving to Afghan government, which is being run by Mr.
Indeed,
Karzai.
actually the situation is not clear, and we are going to have the Bonn conference end of this month, and probably a clearer picture may emerge, but it will take at least a year or 2 for peace and stability to return, which we are hopeful for.
True, true. It would indeed, we will have to wait and see for it. But on the other hand, I would suggest that we must also look at the IPI as an alternate. We not put all the eggs in the single basket. We must also exploit this opportunity, because in IPI, if we see that there is not a third country, in TAPI we'll have to rely on Afghanistan, but in IPI we'll have to rely on only Afghanistan, and a direct link between Pakistan and Iran.
Talking about the Iran-Pakistan gas line, initially India was also interested in it, and now China has expressed interest that the line may be extended all the way to China through Kashgar. And what is exactly the problem with this IPI?
Well, I don't know. As I said, I don't think it's an either or. My feeling always has been that if you negotiate both pipelines, you'll get a better price. This is the fundamental thing. If it goes on to China, well and good. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter, because the point is we need the gas in any case. That's not a break point for us. Perhaps there is some American pressure not to build it, but the point is, if America is so keen to help our economic development, wants to help in energy, why should it be against this particular pipeline from Iran? It's not against their sanctions, because it doesn't require any investment by us inside Iran territory. And it would be also vital for energy security.
Right. And one more thing I want to add on it. If China adds in this project IP IPC. It will become IPC, Iran, Pakistan and China. Then ultimately we will see that American pressure would be reduced because of China. So we must encourage China in this project, and both these gas pipelines would ensure our energy crisis would be handled within coming years. And I think we must promote both the gas pipelines instead of TAPI.
Right. Ambassador, what are the options for trade? I believe it has a high potential, and trade was discussed on the current visit of the Turkmenistan president also.
Yes, well, one of the MOUs on cooperation is between the two ministries of trade of Turkmenistan and Ministry of Commerce of Pakistan. Trade, unfortunately, hasn't fulfilled its potential. We export only $1.8 million to Afghanistan, to Turkmenistan. They export $41 million of stuff to Pakistan. The fact is very simple. If we can give insurance cover through Afghanistan to our exporters, and the Afghans are very happy to carry these goods through Afghanistan, non-perishable items, we can certainly increase our trade. If you look at Turkey, they've got a longer distance from Turkmenistan, but they're even supplying ice cream. So why can't we do the same? I think we require a little bit of imagination there.
But President Berdi Mohamedov also expressed interest in establishing a direct air link between Pakistan and Turkmenistan, which may perhaps enhance trade. What is your opinion, sir?
Yes, because it will help businessmen go. But I want to remind that from 94 to 99, there was a direct air link. There was Turkmen Air was flying to Karachi, and PI was also flying to Karachi, to Ashgabat, and then to Baku. And we had at that time air links with all the Central Asian capitals, or at least with Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. So we need to reactivate it. And the other thing, as I said, is the other thing which was discussed was also electricity. They have 1,000 megawatts of spare electricity in Merv, their big station in Merv, and they offered it to us in '95. And they've repeated the offer again this year, during this visit. So we need to move on that too, because that would not come down this route, it would go down towards Peshawar, the closer route.
Right.
And one more thing I want to add in the trade sector, we can also utilize the benefits of our Gwadar port.
That's a very important point. Are you implying that we could have an energy corridor for Turkmenistan to go all the way from
Turkmenistan, Pakistan, and to the whole world,
into the
Indian Ocean? And we can also provide the facility of Gwadar port to the other Central Asian nation states, especially Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and other states, Kyrgyzstan as well. Because we first of all will have to see the Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a key factor there. We, all the stakeholders of the region, neighbors of Afghanistan, we must put all our efforts for the peace and stability of Afghanistan. Because when Afghanistan will be stable, all the region would be peaceful, and it would be ultimately help in promoting trade, peace, and all the showers of Almighty would be on the region.
Right. So, Ambassador, what is the ethnic situation over there? I noticed that one of the agreements signed was on culture. So, what kind of a cultural exchange can we look forward to?
Yes, the cultural exchange, look forward that there will be an exchange of artists between the two countries, academics between the two countries, also archaeologists between the two countries, performances, exchange of books between the libraries as well. So it's quite broad, and it was actually an agreement, cultural exchange program from 2011 to 2013. And as is the nature of our cultural agreements, these are time-wise, 2 year, 2 year, 2 years. So I think it's a good advance. And of course, the major of the 5 agreements was the gas sale and purchase agreement, framework agreement. Otherwise, there was also a cooperation between the 2 foreign offices, commerce and business, and also the APP and the media in that case. So there were 5 agreements, yes.
Right. And there is also an exchange, or rather a currency swap agreement. Could you shed some light on that?
Indeed, the currency swap agreement would help both the countries in exchanging the currency, and it would facilitate Pakistan in opening the banks of its national bank and other banks, and similarly it would be vice versa. So these things would further help in Pakistan and Turkmenistan in trade. These are byproducts or by items, especially the main focus is on trade and energy. These things are to facilitate both these main things.
I just want to add, the currency swap agreement is, there's no agreement, there's a discussion on this thing.
Okay.
There's no agreement on currency swap. We opened our national bank there in 1995. And the other thing I want to add is that we have had very strong military cooperation with them in training from 1995 as well. And about 200 Turkmen officers have trained in Kakul, National Defense Academy, in Air Force, etc. since then. So this is another thing. My idea was that Turkmenistan should be a model of cooperation with the Central Asian republics. It was at that time. It remains the country with which we have the strongest links.
So Nasir, Naveed,
in Central Asia, of course.
Right. Let's talk about the future. What steps should we take to make sure that this friendship between Pakistan and Turkmenistan becomes even stronger?
This friendship can be more stronger if we work on trade, work on more energy interests, and more importantly, we work on education. Because education and cultural exchanges can make this relationship everlasting and more strong.
Yeah, I wanted to say that as far as education is concerned, their education is in Turkmen and Russian, so there's not much we can do there apart from setting up English schools. There's nothing they can teach us on education. We have to reform our own system, is my idea. And the foremost priority has to be energy. Trade also can go up, but it's a small market of 5 million people. But certainly, like we have a large market in Afghanistan, we can develop that consumer good market there. But basically energy. And we can't be so hesitant and reticent that we are waiting for this, we are worried about that. Facts create their own momentum. If we start working on this agreement seriously, if we start some work on the ground, some surveys, etc., and we start now the intergas system of Pakistan, which is here, they should start working on raising capital, investment capital for the 795 kilometers inside Afghanistan, and they should also approach the Americans who are so keen about this.
But you mentioned, sir, defense cooperation, but the extent of the cooperation appears to be one-sided. What can Turkmenistan give us in the field of defense? Did it inherit any industries from pre-Soviet Union?
No. Unlike Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan, it has no significant defense industries. It's a small, not very industrialized state, relying on natural resources. So one-sided, in a sense, it is one-sided because our defense training establishments are much bigger and more established in that case.
So we have much more to offer.
Yes.
And what do you look forward to in the field of strategy?
In the field of strategy. I think that Pakistan and Turkmenistan can work on strategic issues, like Pakistan can help, as Ambassador has already mentioned, Turkmenistan soldiers, Turkmenistan's army personnel to have training in Pakistan, and similarly Pakistan can help Turkmenistan in other issues like giving it access to our water port and other infrastructure as well.
Right. So what other fields can you think of other than energy, trade, a little bit of defense?
Well, I think energy, trade, defense, remember it's a neutral country, so obviously our cooperation is strictly on the training side. We've always kept it in that way. Mm-hmm. The main thing is, we have to the main thing that we can do is we can work together in stabilizing Afghanistan. Turkmenistan has built a railway line 115 kilometers into Afghanistan. It is supplying electricity to Afghanistan. It is trying to help Afghanistan. We are trying to do the same thing. So it is a very important neighbor for Afghanistan and for us in the stability of Afghanistan, on which depends so much of our cooperation, both trade and also energy, which is foremost.
Afghanistan is situated actually in between Turkmenistan and Pakistan. So the ambassador just mentioned that they have already built a railway line from their side. What can we do from here to ensure that these link up and benefit not only Afghanistan but Turkmenistan and Pakistan?
Afghanistan is the linchpin between Pakistan and Turkmenistan. Peace and stability in Afghanistan is the key to everything which we are discussing over here. Energy, trade, all things can be successful only because of peace in Afghanistan. We can help Afghan people in building their infrastructure. We can also build railway links between various cities of Afghanistan, and we can also connect these railway links between Afghanistan, Pakistan and Turkmenistan, which can add more to the region.
We have actually proposed that this railway link should be established between what they have built in Afghanistan and our side. So this is a proposal also on the table.
It's a very important proposal, but how do we ensure that that comes about in its place because of the strife and turmoil in Afghanistan?
Well, I mean, the point is, let's say that in 1995 we bought $42 million of Turkmen cotton, which is a vital need when we lack cotton. Most of it was transported through Iran without any problem, and 10–15% was transported through Afghanistan without any problem. There's no problem in sending your goods right now by truck through Afghanistan. You give it to Afghan truck drivers and they carry it out there. So I think the point is, if we start this process, it will help stabilize. We can't say it's like a chicken and egg, that till everything is solved in Afghanistan, we can't do anything. We've been sitting on our hands for 15 years. Now we have to be a bit more proactive, and that will help stabilize Afghanistan.
So Nasir, your concluding comments on Pak-Turkmenistan relations.
The visit of Turkmen president was a good step in building relations, and Pakistan and Turkmenistan must bring these relations into practical shape, and Pakistan and Turkmenistan must promote their trade and energy sector.
So viewers, with that we come to the end of this discussion, and both our participants have opined that energy is the most important sector in which Turkmenistan and Pakistan can cooperate, but of course other sectors have been highlighted, like trade, like commerce, like education, like defense. And of course the direct air link, if it is established or rather revived, it is going to help the cause much better. We would like to thank our participants, Ambassador Tariq Osman Hyder and Nasir Naveed, and viewers, keep sending us your comments, and we look forward to presenting you another program next week, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.